Welcome to the Apple Color LaserWriter 12600 PS video service training. This part of the videotape demonstrates how to set up the printer and reviews normal startup operation. Begin setup by choosing a flat, stable area with adequate space around the printer. The area should be well ventilated and away from direct sunlight or sources of heat, cold, or humidity. Temperature and humidity affect print quality. Temperature should be between 50 and 86 degrees, and humidity should be between 10 and 80% RH Noncondensing. Begin unpacking the printer by pushing in and then pulling out the clips on both sides of the printer box. Next, lift the box, uncovering the printer. The side of the printer with the Apple logo is heavier than the other side. Be careful to balance the printer as you lift it. Then place it in the location you've chosen. The printer weighs approximately 110 pounds and should never be lifted by yourself. Have at least one other person assist you. The Apple logo marks the front of the printer. Position the printer with the logo facing toward you. When positioning the printer, allow space to open the top and side doors for clearing paper jams, to let air to flow around the fan, to open the paper cassette, and to open the front door to install and replace consumables. It's also important that the printer be placed far enough away from the rear wall so that the rear panels can be removed during servicing without having to move the printer. Do not plug in the printer or turn it on until you've completed setup, including all the network connections. Now, remove the 5 pieces of packing tape from the outside of the printer. Open the fuser access door and lift up and remove the 2 orange spacers from inside. Slide out and open the paper cassette and remove the cardboard packing material. Then slide the paper cassette back into the printer. Open the front door. Then, using a coin or Phillips screwdriver, loosen the orange plastic shipping screw and spacer and pull it out. Put the shipping screw in a safe place in case you ever need to ship the printer to a new location. Leave the printer door open. A quick reference document is included in the printer setup kit and when installed is hung here on the inside of the front door. The quick reference document helps users solve problems with the printer, such as clearing a paper jam or loading paper into the paper cassette. Continue by opening the cover of the fuser oil compartment and removing the styrofoam. Locate the bottle of fuser oil in the printer setup kit. Pull the orange tab to remove the seal from the bottle. Install the oil bottle by gently tipping the bottle upside down and sliding it into the compartment. Press the bottle down. This opens the mechanism in the lid so the oil can flow into the compartment. Then close the cover over the fuser oil bottle. Important, if any fuser oil spills on the floor, clean it up immediately with paper towels. The oil is very slippery. Now, locate the Photoconductor cartridge in the setup kit. Important, the Photoconductor is sensitive to light. Do not open the package until you're ready to install the Photoconductor cartridge. Inside the foil bag, the Photoconductor cartridge sits in an orange protective tray designed to make installation easy and to protect the photoconductor from being touched or exposed to light. Do not take the Photoconductor cartridge out of the tray. If you scratch the photoconductor, the marks can appear on every page you print until you replace the photoconductor cartridge. Begin installing the photoconductor by pushing the transfer drum lever down and to the right. Lift this lever to move the disposal box cover out of the way. Now, holding the orange tray, line up the top of the cartridge with the tracks at the top of the opening in the printer. Line up the arrow on the cartridge with the arrow above the compartment opening. Then slide the cartridge into the receptacle. When the cartridge is most of the way in, remove the orange tray. Save the orange tray in case you ever need to remove the photoconductor cartridge for troubleshooting. Push the cartridge all the way in until the latch snaps into the lock position. Locate the toner waste disposal box in the setup kit. Slide the toner disposal box into place. The opening in the top of the box fits here. Then close the toner disposal box cover and raise the transfer drum lever to lock the photoconductor cartridge in place. Begin installing the toner cartridges by pressing in and turning this knob clockwise to rotate the toner cartridge carousel. If the knob won't turn, you haven't pressed the knob far enough in to release the carousel. As soon as the carousel starts to turn, you can stop pressing the knob. Turn gently until the carousel locks into a new position. Notice that the color of the tabs has changed. Take the toner cartridge that matches the color of the tabs out of its packaging. Distribute the toner powder by gently rocking the toner cartridge back and forth in this manner. Remove the shipping tape from the toner cartridge. Then remove the sealing tape by grasping the orange plastic tab and pulling it away from and completely out of the cartridge. Now insert the toner cartridge into the carousel. Align the arrow on the carousel with the arrow on the toner cartridge and slide the toner cartridge into the printer. Then insert the toner cartridge all the way. Push firmly to lock it in place. If the cartridge isn't installed correctly, you won't be able to rotate the carousel and install another cartridge. Repeat this process until you've installed all 4 toner cartridges. Then close the front door. The paper cassette holds up to 250 sheets of paper. With the optional universal cassette, you can load U.S. letter, A4, B5, or legal-sized paper. When printing from either cassette, load letterhead paper face up. An optional sheet feeder can be installed under the printer. The printer and optional sheet feeder paper cassette trays are interchangeable. The color LaserWriter 12600 PS uses these printing materials: 16 to 28 pound laser quality bond and special transparencies. The printer will not print on label stock or envelopes. Avoid using poor quality paper. The best quality paper will produce the best quality prints. The paper used should not scorch, melt, transfer material, or release hazardous emissions when heated to 393 degrees Fahrenheit. The multi-purpose tray holds up to 100 sheets of paper or transparencies. Important, only transparencies with these white squares made specifically for this printer can be used. You can also use the tray for manual jobs. You can connect the printer to many computers and networks using the printer's high-speed parallel, Ethernet, and local talk ports. The SCSI port is used with external hard drives. The printer prints only one user's job at a time, but it manages incoming print jobs from all ports so that no printing conflicts or problems occur. Consult the manuals that came with the printer or other documentation for procedures for connecting the printer to the host computer or network. Connect the power cord and power on the printer. After power on, the printer conducts a self-test. During execution of the power-on self-test, all LEDs light briefly, and then these 4 LEDs extinguish one at a time as each of the tests is completed. The printer takes about 3 minutes to warm up. Next, the printer checks and adjusts color density. We have removed the face-down delivery tray for this demonstration. First, a series of solid color bands are printed on the transfer drum, checked and brushed off. Then a series of graduated color bands are printed on the transfer drum, checked and brushed off. During this procedure, color density is recalibrated if necessary. The density check is performed each time the printer is powered on and when either the front door or fuser assembly cover is opened. Finally, every time you restart the printer, it automatically prints startup and demonstration pages, unless you turn off either or both using the Apple Printer utility. The startup page shows how the printer is set up, including the network connection types, fonts installed, and the options attached to the printer. The demonstration page prints a variety of color images. The startup and demonstration pages should look clean and sharp. If they are spotty, too light or too dark, or otherwise unclear, switch the printer off and on to print a second set of pages. Try this 2 or 3 times if necessary. After the startup and demonstration pages are printed, the Ready in Use light glows steadily. All other lights should be off. This concludes Part 1, Setup and Power On. Please stop the tape. Part 2 demonstrates how to remove modules and major parts and identifies the location of printer upgrades. Some screws and parts may already be removed for demonstration purposes. Be sure to carefully review the procedures on Service Source when taking apart and reassembling this printer. Part 2 begins by removal of these components. When they are removed, the printer is disassembled to a point where it can be operated while observing how modules and parts function. This is ideal for troubleshooting and for verification of operation after the printer is fixed. Begin by opening the fuser access door and removing the 2 brass-colored screws that secure the top cover to the printer chassis. Now open the front door. Open the top access door. Release the small tab and slide the black arm off its pin. Reach across the top cover and hold your left thumb on the upper front door hinge plate and your right thumb on the I/O controller bracket screw. Then pull firmly against the edge of the top cover to release its tab connectors and lift the cover from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. First, remove the two silver-colored screws that secure the left cover frame to the chassis. Then lift the left cover upward and remove it from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. Begin by releasing the two tabs at the upper corners of the rear cover. Then remove the cover from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. First, remove the 9 silver-colored screws that secure the rear shield plate to the chassis. Now lift the shield plate and remove it from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. With the front door open, open the door to the paper pickup area. Open the fuser access door and remove the tab that connects the fuser door strap to the chassis. Then slide the fuser access door leftward out of its hinge connector and remove the door from the printer. With these covers removed, the printer is now disassembled enough to view the operation of components for further troubleshooting or verification of operation after the printer is fixed. This is the fuser assembly. Mechanical controller board. Sensor assembly located behind the power supply. High voltage power supply. High voltage separation assembly located behind the mechanical controller board. And printer drive assembly located behind and below the mechanical controller board. This is the end of the procedure. To check printer operation, insert the cleaning brush, located on the top cover, in front of the fuser access cover interrupt switch to defeat this switch. Then connect the printer to a Macintosh or PowerBook computer to test printing operation. You can also check voltages on the mechanical controller board at this time. We will remove the paper cassette tray and toner cartridges and continue with take apart. First, open the front door and remove the brass-colored screw that holds the support strap to the door. Then lift the front door upward off its hinge plates and remove it from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. First, lower the transfer drum lever and raise the toner waste box cover. Tap the plastic flange, located above the top of the box, several times to release any waste toner that has not fallen into the box. Pull the toner waste box from the printer. Then remove the black plastic cap from the side of the waste box and use it to seal the box. This is the end of the procedure. Begin by placing the end of the orange photoconductor tray in the V-shaped opening of the photoconductor compartment. Release the green tab on the right edge of the cartridge and slide the cartridge into the tray, making sure that the positioning tabs on the cartridge track snugly along the top edges of the tray. Then slide the photoconductor cartridge out of the printer. Important: replacement of this component requires that you download information stored in the DC controller board using the procedure presented in Service Source. This is the end of the procedure. First, open the clamp that covers the fuser oil compartment. Then lift the fuser oil bottle from the printer. Caution: there is a mechanism in the lid that automatically cuts off the flow of oil when the bottle is removed from the printer. However, some oil might still drip. Be sure to keep the bottle upright and protected by a paper towel as you continue servicing the printer. This is the end of the procedure. Begin by opening the paper pickup block cover. Loosen the two large locking screws at the base of the fuser assembly. These screws do not come off. Now grasp the two knobs and slide the fuser assembly outward. When replacing the fuser assembly, be sure to draw out all of the excess oil from the reservoir and bottom of the assembly using the Apple-provided syringe. Holding the two green handles, lift the fuser assembly from the printer. Then push the two tracks back into the printer. This is the end of the procedure. With the paper pickup block cover open, release the green lock levers at each side of the paper pickup block and slide the pickup block outward. Next, remove the two silver-colored screws and the two metal stoppers. Then remove the paper pickup block from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. First, remove the brass-colored screw that secures the panel to the printer, and remove inner panel 1 from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. Begin by lifting the separation voltage assembly up and away from the transfer drum. Disconnect the 13-pin connector from the end plate of the transfer drum assembly. Remove the 5 silver-colored screws. Lint-free cloth gloves must be used to complete the rest of this procedure. Caution: do not touch the surface of the transfer drum with your hands. If the surface gets soiled, use only lint-free paper to clean it. Now carefully slide the transfer drum out of the printer, guiding it with your right hand under the drum assembly frame. This is the end of the procedure. Begin by disconnecting the 6 connectors along the edge of the power supply. Now remove the 5 silver-colored screws. Release the tab that secures the black cable guide to the pickup block side of the chassis wall. Pull the cable guide away from the chassis and disconnect the connector. Then remove the power supply from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. Begin by disconnecting the 4 connectors. Remove the 2 brass-colored screws that secure the high-voltage power supply to the chassis and the 1 silver-colored grounding screw. Then pull the high-voltage power supply out of the printer. This is the end of the procedure. First, disconnect all the connectors to the mechanical controller board. Remove the 2 silver-colored screws and the 1 brass-colored screw that secure the mount to the chassis. Then lift up the board slightly and tilt it forward to release the catches securing the mount to the frame, and remove the mechanical controller board and mount from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. First, remove the brass-colored screw. Then slide the fan and duct to the left and pull them from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. Begin by removing the 3 brass-colored terminal contact screws. The brass-colored screw that secures the assembly to the chassis, and the silver-colored grounding screw. Remove the contact cables from their guides and clamps. Next, remove the 6 rearmost screws that secure the I/O board housing to the chassis. Raise the I/O board housing slightly and hold it. This provides clearance for the next step. Grasp the high-voltage separation assembly and shift it firmly to the left to release the claw. Then remove the assembly from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. First, remove the silver-colored screw that secures the delivery drive assembly to the printer. Then tilt the assembly backward to release the notch on the bottom and remove the assembly from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. To remove the printer drive assembly, first remove the two silver-colored screws that secure the receptacle of the fuser interconnect cable to the chassis. This is required to provide the clearance needed to remove the assembly from the printer. Next, remove the 6 silver-colored screws. Then carefully pull the printer drive assembly straight out from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. Begin by carefully releasing the 2 tabs securing the status panel bottom cover and slide off the status panel bottom cover. These tabs are delicate. Do not apply too much force. Next, loosen the 2 captive screws that secure the I/O controller board to the printer. And slide the board out of the printer. Both printer upgrades are installed on the I/O controller board. The RAM upgrade SIM is installed in this SIM socket, and the internal hard drive is installed using these 3 screws. Remove the remaining silver-colored screws that secure the I/O interconnect shield to the chassis. Some of the screws were removed earlier. Now lift the shield and status panel housing and disconnect connector J803 on the I/O interconnect board. Then remove the shield and housing from the printer. Now remove the remaining screws securing the I/O controller board housing to the printer frame. Disconnect these 2 cables. Then remove the I/O controller board housing from the printer while carefully removing the fan and interconnect cables. This is the end of the procedure. Begin by disconnecting the 3 connectors from the cable guide. Remove the 2 brass-colored screws that secure the black cable guide to the chassis. And remove the cable guide from the printer. Remove all the connectors. These 2 ribbon cable connectors do not have release tabs. Remove these cables by pulling with even pressure until they come loose. When replacing, press the cables back into the connector using even pressure until they are fully seated. Remove the 4 silver-colored screws. Then remove the DC controller board from the printer. Important, replacement of this component requires that you download information stored in the DC controller board using the procedure presented in Service Source. This is the end of the procedure. First, remove the 2 silver-colored screws that secure the grounding wires to the top of the laser scanner assembly. Remove the 4 brass-colored screws that secure the laser scanner assembly to the chassis. Then lift the laser scanner assembly from the printer. This is the end of the procedure. This concludes Part 2, Take Apart and Upgrades, and this tape. Refer to Service Source for reassembly procedures. Please stop and rewind the tape.